Hey, it's Aaron, the Metal Theologian. And so this video is like a contest entry for Rachel. All right, Rachel, formerly Rachel the Music Man, now Rachel's Ghost. We're going to talk about that in a second. But this record that I'm listening to at the beginning here, this is dedicated to Davis over at Fred Putterman's channel, the Vinyl Community College. This is a really shitty fucking new wave of British heavy metal 45. Like, this is one of those, like, based on its scarcity and shit. Like, as far as, like, how many there are kicking around. It could be, like, a big dollar one, but no one actually wants it. So, like, it's relatively cheap. And there's more of them than a lot of things, you know. But mostly it's just kind of crappy. And, of course, I think it's great. What's that, though? It sounds like 14. Like, that's the spirit of new wave British heavy metal. Alright, so anyway, though, that's a little middle finger there. But, you know, a affectionate middle finger. So this is for Rachel, now Rachel's Ghost channel, and I'll do my best to try and put a link down there, but you should subscribe. So Rachel mostly does live streams, and a lot of it's sort of like the community and that sort of thing. Like, everyone's there because they're into music, but a lot of the appeals like the drama and shit. I mean, let's be honest. And, I'm a little surprised sometimes at how seriously people take some of this shit. And I mean, you know something, I have thoughts, but there's yeah. Anyway. So I don't enter a lot of contests, but I got guilted into this one by Rachel. And to a lesser degree by Davis, but especially by Rachel. No, I'm mostly kidding. I did get guilted into it, but I'd still not do it if I didn't have a good idea to do it or something. But I had a really good idea for the first one, I thought. So it was so good that like I did the rest of it around it. So there are 3 questions you have to answer, and I'm going to actually do them in reverse order because the last one's kind of the really interesting one. The first one actually kind of is a little bit weird because it's something with some kind of connection to a 45 audio file. Shit, 45 RPM audio file. Oh, man, getting this fucking channel name right. I'll play the other side of this just for Davis. Because, yeah, honestly, I'd never even heard of this guy's channel, but I met him briefly when I was hanging out on a stream the other night. He seems like a really good dude and shit, you know what I mean? But I don't really know anything about him. So I went and I looked at his channel. And, I mean, it's 45 RPM audio file, like, right? And apparently a lot of what this guy does, seems like a really nice guy, but a lot of what he does is, like, he gets, like, really good pressings of, like, really kind of, you know, well-known records. I mean, kind of normie records, honestly, but, you know, I don't want to be judgmental about it. But, you know, just, like, well-known, sort of well-trodden ground, and, like, since I tend to go for, like, shitty recordings as opposed to audiophile ones of bands that nobody's heard of, it's kind of like the opposite of my channel. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm on board with the 45 RPM, but I'm not, like, wedded to it. I'm kind of neutral on the subject, really. So, yeah, so I was thinking between that and him being German, but not from the South. I didn't know where from. I actually thought about making a little thing about that, but if I didn't have enough information, I wouldn't want to be inadvertently offensive either. That's how amateurish this is. And speaking of amateurish, here's a shitty German record that sounds pretty bad by Hellbreath. And I actually hyped this one not too long ago. So I'm going to keep playing Myth Run Deer. I might put this on in a minute if the spirit moves me. But based on that cover, it gives you a pretty good idea of what you're looking at. And these band photos, they really look like they'd be more at home on, like, you know, a krautrock record or something like that. So that's kind of awesome, too. You know, these guys look like they'd be in a band like Harry Chapter or something like that. Not an 80s metal band. But this record's pretty rockin'. And it's also pretty inept. And I kind of love it. So there you go. So that was Rachel's third question, was something having to do with him, okay? And I kind of did a shitty job, but I'm working with what I've got, okay? You know. So the second question, I forgot. Oh, a comeback record, okay. So I thought about this one, right? Now, like, Deep Purple's like the really obvious one for me because that was like marketed as a comeback album. But that was right around the time I got into them, so I was never really had the experience of being into Deep Purple prior to Perfect Strangers. But this is a comeback record right here. This record actually got me into this band. Like, I was aware of Candlemass back in the day, and like a lot of people kind of snoozed on them. what got me into him was actually I was hanging out with Doom Paul, who hasn't uploaded in a while, but his channel's still up there. But he was like, dude, listen to this, and he just played me a little piece of this, and the opening riff of Black Dwarf just blew my mind, and instantly hooked me. And then I went back and fell in love with all the other records, and you know. So anyway, this one seemed like a pretty good representative because the Candlemass self-titled album is actually not only a comeback record, and not only a really noteworthy comeback record, a really remarkably good comeback record, but it's also one that I don't know, how should I say it? It sort of gave more to me than a record like that normally would. Okay, so the first question now out of the three was something with a ghost, okay, which is kind of a lame question. I mean, and I understand, I don't mean lame like Rachel sucks at coming up with questions. I mean, like, it's really broad, you can interpret it a bunch of different ways, and some people are showing ghosts and shit like that. I was thinking, it's cool as far as ghosts and music goes, that whole phenomenon of the death discs in the 60s. You know, I imagine Rachel knows about this whole sort of thing, but there's this whole sort of subgenre of like 60s, I mean, with sort of the bubblegum, but also with some of the harder edge stuff, but, you know, sort of across the spectrum to a certain degree. But there's this subgenre of, you know, what are definitely pop songs that basically involve dying in one way or another. And one of the most noteworthy was by a guy, if I'm not mistaken, the guy was named John Layton, but it was a Joe Meek production. That's kind of what it was really notable for. I used to have a compilation of just like Joe Meek productions from the 60s, and that's sort of where I heard this original from. Now, I don't have the original, but I do have this cover that I just got not too long ago by this band called The Meteors. And Johnny Remember Me is great. It's... So again, it's not the original. And you know, again, if you know about Joe Meek and like his whole deal with like the weird productions and that sort of thing, you know, Joe Meek death discs definitely kind of have their own character, you know. But anyway, we're gonna put on this cover by the Meteors here and enjoy that for a second. Once I can fucking get the inner sleeve open here. There we go. I actually bought this more for the other side because it has Wrecking Crew on it, which is one of my favorite songs by this band. And I tend to kind of disapprove of covers, but the fact is the Meteors do pretty good covers most of the time, you know. Most of the time. Occasionally they pick a really obvious one. You're like, dude, I really don't need to hear this fucking song, you know. Although, you know who else picks really shitty covers this exactly the same way? Fucking Blue Oyster Cult, man. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so this thing had like this weird production, which they kind of imitate on this cover version too, right? It has sort of the beat. I'll bet I'm gonna get copyright on this thing too, but whatever. I like these ghostly voices, and I don't even remember like it's like some of the weird story that you're not gonna be able to hear through the speakers anyway, but it involves like the woman's in some kind of like accident or something and dies, and like her like dying words are "Johnny, remember me," you know, and so he keeps hearing it like in the wind and shit like that. There we go. Here's a little back picture of the Meteors. Back in the early days of this fucking band. So anyway, there you go. Classic death disc. There's the ghost right there. The ghost is actually in the music, singing "Johnny, remember me." So there you go. So this video is a little bit short, so I'll probably just show a couple more records just to fill it out a little bit. But subscribe to Rachel. It's fun. It's a really fun channel. You know what I mean? They do spend a lot of time talking about the Beatles over there, like a lot of time. You know what I mean? And yeah, but just good people. You know what I mean? And I mean, if they were shitty people, I wouldn't be sitting here yanking their chains like that, right? By which I mostly mean Rachel herself. So this record's been getting played a lot here this past week. You know, this has kind of become my favorite Anthrax record. You know, I got really heavily into this band, actually because of Indians. Sort of Indians and Madhouse about the same time, but especially Indians. That was right around Among the Living, right? And then I saw them on that tour later on, but So yeah, so the different singer and kind of the different sound and that sort of thing, I wasn't really ready for it back then, and that's where I was on board with like the goofiness and shit like that. So this record just sort of being a straight ahead, like there's it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but not as tongue in cheek as like after this record. You know what I mean? And it's funny for some reason. I like normally on a record like this, I would look at this and just like hate the fact they stuck "I'm 18" right in the middle of the side, but it really doesn't disrupt like I would kind of expect it to. Maybe the song just stands up. But, sorry, my ankle's a little bit fucked up, but I'm normally sit down here and sort of loaf, but I'm having a little trouble today. So it comes with age, man. It's some fucked up shit, right? Yeah, so anyway, this is a fucking awesome record, man. I've been really enjoying this a lot. I think it's a pretty well-loved record here among the, vinyl community, as it were. This band is finally starting to make a little more sense to me, actually. It's another one I pull out periodically. God damn, man, I'm sorry I'm being such a spaz here. I think I'm going to kill the video soon because I just can't get comfortable, but Pagan Altar gets a lot of love from a lot of people as being sort of an important early doom band. They're kind of new wave British heavy metal in the same way that Witchfinder General is, in that they were sort of contemporary with that shit, but that wasn't really what they were doing. You know what I mean? And I definitely always saw why it was sort of seen as like early for that kind of sound, but as far as why they weren't important, I mean, first of all, there's the fact they never had a commercial release while they were together. But the other thing is that I just thought it kind of sucked. You know what I mean? I really wanted to like it because it's such a cool thing. Well, I think it's starting to grow on me. You know what I mean? I think I'm kind of starting to get over that hump. In fact, what was I thinking about playing a minute ago? I'm going to play Death Hell Breath. Because Pagan Altar, it's funny because I was just saying that Pagan Altar is like not that good, but Pagan Altar is considered good by other people, and I want to make sure that I'm playing a record that no one considers good during this video. So this is Hell Breath, and we're gonna kick this shit off with Satan's Calling. What a great fucking title. There we go. I don't really think this record is as crappy as the Mithrandir, but I also haven't played it in a while, so I might eat those words. I should have done is just made this fucking thing a little bit higher. This kind of section here, like me fucking around with the equipment, that'll be like a nice little harkening back to the early days of this channel when I used to struggle with the camera when it would spaz out of focus and shit like that. I halfway made my reputation off shit like that. I just sit there and swear at the fucking camera. Yeah, you hear that? They really kind of suck. But this is the best shit. You know what I mean? The shit that sucks. Not invariably. It's like, I don't know, man. I just feel like anyone can play in a good band. You know what I mean? Anyone can listen to, like, the Eagles. They're, like, competent musicians and shit. You know what I mean? These guys had no fucking idea what they were doing, but somehow this record is, like, fun to listen to. And, like, listening to an Eagles record is sort of like walking through the park and stepping in a pile of dog shit. You know? This record is fucking entertaining. It, like, fills your soul, you know what I mean? It's like a piece of humanity. And I suppose there are good bands that do that too, but the fucking Eagles aren't one of them, man. How about that singer? Epic, dude. Davis, this one's for you too, man. That's right, man. Nothing but the highest quality entertainment over here on the Metal Theologian channel. Fucking so good. Yeah, you know what else I have sitting around here? I'm like looking for shit to show. I also have a bunch of Blue Oyster Cult records sitting here. So like earlier this week, I was listening to like kind of any record with ME262 on it. And before that, I kind of had Del Rio's song off this record stuck in my head for like 3 days. So yeah, it still goes on. When I saw Eric Weinbender, actually a couple weeks ago, well, either last weekend or the weekend before, the long weekend, I drove up to Greenville with my son actually to see Anvil. It's a little more complicated than that, but that was the upshot. It was me and my younger boy Coltrane went to see Anvil. We met up with Eric Weinbender. So yeah, Eric said that the my Blue Oyster Cult kick is the biggest kick he's seen anyone go on since he's been making videos. You know, and I was like, well, yeah, it might be my biggest one ever now. So what can I say? That's weird though, man. It's not like, I mean, I'm not like 16, you know, and it's not like I just heard this band for the first time, you know. So. But don't worry, I promise as long as this channel is around, we'll keep playing shitty records along with the good ones. So, because Blue Oyster Cult records are pretty good. Except for Mirrors. You know, Mirrors is a piece of crap. It really kind of is. Here's another little discussion topic, actually. I don't remember if I brought this up or not, so forgive me if I've talked about this in another video. But, you know, I've talked a lot. It's regarding Blue Oyster Cult about how, it's funny, I actually, Spectres and Mirrors, I think, are the only two I don't have sitting here right now. Club Ninja, I think, is in the bin, too. Or on the shelf. Anyway, you know, those are the ones that really, I think, are kind of the worst ones. They have that sort of late 70s malaise, you know what I mean? That I talked about the first time I ever talked about Spectres, before I got my head around it at all. I mean, I like both these records a lot now, and I've played them both many times, okay? But like the low point of Spectres, I think, where they really sort of let that aspect of the record shine through, is going through the motions. And there's the evil twin on Mirrors, which is You're Not the One I Was Looking For. And it's like those two, that's like the 1-2 punch of like the low point of the whole Blue Oyster Cult catalog, I think. Supposedly, oh, here's another story. This is a good one for 17 minutes into a video. Here's one little funny habit that I have about Blue Oyster Cult that I was thinking is like it's sort of a long-time record collecting story some of y'all would appreciate. So I'm perpetually like in the habit of like Albert Bouchard, the drummer for Blue Oyster Cult. To me, in my head, is Al Bouchard. I always think of him as Al Bouchard. And I've actually known one other person who called him that though. And that was Phil Baker, who was Dennis from Rockadrome, was his partner with Monster. And frankly, Phil was kind of losing his mind at this point. Okay, that was kind of the story. That was why Monster broke up and Dennis went off and did Rockadrome by himself. I was friends with Phil, okay? Phil was so pissed. Phil would like call me like, oh, Dennis is doing this, he's fucking me. I was friends with Phil. I kind of understood what Dennis was doing. I never was like, oh, Dennis is a dick. I was like, dude, you're fucking crazy. Dennis wants to keep the business going. He can't do it, you know what I mean? So it's a sad story, actually. But one of the funny things, when he was kind of losing his mind, he had something he was wanting to do with like Albert Bouchard or something, or he was going to make some kind of distribution deal, and he called me and was like, dude, you got to call Al Bouchard for me, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't remember why the hell he was calling me to say I needed to call Al Bouchard for him or anything like that. But I just have this memory of him like frenetically calling me like, dude, got this fucking thing, because it was like the mania, frankly. So that's the part that isn't funny, okay? And let me just acknowledge that, and then take a step back. You know, him freaking out over how I needed to call Al Bouchard for him was just like this little funny thing in the middle of kind of a lot of sad stuff around, you know, him deteriorating right then. So anyway, it's kind of serious, but kind of funny too, hopefully. So if you ever hear me in a video talking about Albert Bouchard, I'm always going to call him Al Bouchard, and now you'll know why. If you watched 17 and a half to about 19 minutes into a video that's going to be called something like Contrast Entry for Rachel's Ghost or something like that. So I figure if you're watching that, then you deserve to get a special story, you know what I mean? One that isn't necessarily for everyone. It just sort of stops by casually. So with that, thanks for watching. It's like they had a good idea, but the execution of that riff was kind of crappy, you know? I love it. It's fucking great. Alright. Crappy records forever. Till next time.